Hey, high school literacy leaders. This is DLC Foster Yankee, and in this video, I'll be discussing lessons 1 and 2 in the second section of the Book of Unknown Americans unit. So we will begin with lesson 1. In this lesson, students will evaluate details in the Book of Unknown Americans to determine key ideas that are literal and symbolic. They'll analyze how Diego Rivera develops complex yet believable characters in The Uprising through a range of literary devices, including symbolism, figurative language, and mood. They'll also explain the purpose of rhetorical devices such as understatement and overstatement by analyzing dialogue in the Book of Unknown Americans. The texts for this lesson are the Book of Unknown Americans and the painting, The Uprising by Diego Rivera. The materials for this lesson are the Mentor Sentence Journal, Literary Elements and Narrative Techniques Note-Taking Tool, Visual Analysis Tool, Vocabulary Journal, Narratives Reference Guide, and the Section 2 question set. So for the lesson overview, we will continue to analyze the Book of Unknown Americans as well as a painting by Diego Rivera to deepen our understanding of characterization in literary text. So now we'll take a closer look at the 5 activities that make up lesson 1. In the first activity, students discuss with a partner the questions on the screen. What is characterization and what techniques do authors use to develop characters? Next, they review pages 14 through 18 of the Narratives Reference Guide and discuss the second set of questions with their partner. So, how does your understanding of characterization and character development reflect what is explained in this reference guide? What new understanding, if any, do you have? To support students, like it says in the teaching notes, character development should not be a new concept for most students, and the goal here is to help students access prior knowledge and to use the reference guide to provide a refresher on the specific ways that authors develop character, which will come in handy when they are rewriting vignettes from one of the characters' perspectives. The teacher might expand this activity into a class discussion that provides them with an opportunity to fill in any obvious gaps in their understanding. And again, it's not a characterization lesson, it's a refresher. Moving on to activity 2, students independently examine Diego Rivera's mural, The Uprising, and use the visual analysis tool to respond to the question on the screen. How does the artist develop character traits in this painting? Afterwards, they discuss their analysis with their partner and revise their tool based on new insights gleaned from the discussion. To support students who may need support transferring their understanding of character development of written text to visual text, the teacher might scaffold this activity by asking a series of guided questions based on the character development techniques listed in the narrative's reference guide. For example, what external conflicts are present in the scene? What character traits in each of the principal figures are revealed through the conflicts? What imagery is present in the scene? And how do these details help to develop the character of each figure? So I would definitely have the image posted as well as those questions around the image for any students who might need support as to what to add to their visual analysis tool. Moving on to activity 3, students analyze the character of Alma in the Book of Unknown Americans using the quote on the screen from page 6 of the novel. They answer the questions on the screen in their learning log, then discuss with a partner. So they're answering, what does this passage tell the reader about the character of Alma, and what character development techniques does Enriquez use? Next, the teacher explains the author's use specific word choice to convey feelings and ideas to the reader. Students look again at the passage on page 6 and with their partner analyze the word choice Enriquez uses when describing Maribel's and Arturo's breathing, and what Enriquez accomplishes with her word choice, adding notes from their discussion to their learning logs. After discussing with the partner, students share as a class. To support students, there is additional information on authors' purposeful word choice in the teaching notes that would make a great anchor chart. There is also a suggestion to augment this activity by having students use a working with mentor sentences tool to analyze the stylistic fragments, to analyze the use of stylistic fragments, parallelism, ellipses, and lack of quotation marks for internal dialogue. They might select and write down one technique in their mentor sentence journal to plan to use in their response to the Section 2 diagnostic. In the next activity, the teacher explains what imagery is as well as its purpose, and students examine a quote from the novel, paying attention to word choice and imagery. Teachers should remind students that they will be using imagery in their responses to the culminating task. After that, they write down and analyze the quote in their literary elements and narrative techniques note taking tool. Afterward, they discuss their analysis with a partner and revise their tool based on new insights gleaned from the discussion. To support students, the teacher might expand this activity by having students use a working with mentor sentences tool to again, examine the author's use of parallelism, stylistic simple sentences, figurative language, and so on. To conclude this lesson, students read and annotate pages 67 to 91 of the Book of Unknown Americans, write down at least 3 entries in their literary elements and narrative techniques note-taking tool, focusing on Enriquez's word choice and use of imagery. They're also going to write new or interesting words in their vocabulary journal and strong or interesting sentences in their mentor sentence journal. They may be the same or different from the quotations they identified on their literary elements and narrative techniques note taking tool, because in their mentor sentence journal, they will specifically analyze the author's use of language, syntax, and style. Students should be prepared to discuss the vocabulary they identified in the next lesson. So I usually share the cubs at the end of the video, but I thought the beginning of a new section was the perfect place to mix it up. So here's our cub. I based it on activity 5. And I'll also share one next based on activity 2 because the cub depends on the products and there are a couple of options for this lesson. So for the first cub for lesson 1, I have students will know the definition and purpose of imagery. They'll understand how the author develops complex yet believable characters through a range of literary devices, including imagery. And they'll be able to analyze the author's word choice and use of imagery by adding at least 3 entries to their literary elements and narrative techniques note-taking tool. Or, based on activity 2, students will know what characterization is. They'll understand how Diego Rivera develops character traits in The Uprising and be able to analyze how Diego Rivera develops character traits in The Uprising using the visual analysis tool. Moving on to lesson 2. In this lesson, students will evaluate details from the Book of Unknown Americans to determine key ideas about literary elements. They'll analyze how themes are developed through characterization in the Book of Unknown Americans, as well as analyze how Enriquez uses language to develop themes. One text, the Book of Unknown Americans. Quite a few materials. Students will need the Analyzing Relationships tool, Mentor Sentence Journal, Literary Elements and Narrative Techniques Note-Taking tool, Vocabulary and Context tool, Vocabulary Journal, Word Map, Word Sorts, Open and Closed, Academic Discussion Reference Guide, Theme Reference Guide, and the Section 2 question set. For the lesson overview, we will examine relationships among literary elements and how they interact to illuminate meaning. So to begin lesson 2, students get into small groups and compare the words they wrote in their vocabulary journals. They select one word from each group's vocabulary journal and respond to the vocabulary exercises listed here as directed by the teacher. I've said it before and I'll say it again for any first-time viewers. Turn it into a choice board, let them pick, and move on. Activity 2 is optional and provides an opportunity to reinforce the literary elements that were studied in the previous section, being setting, plot, and conflicts, with the newly added element of characterization. Students turn to page 68 of the novel and follow along as either the teacher or a peer reads aloud to a designated stopping point on page 69. As they listen, they underline and annotate one phrase from this section that Enriquez uses to develop the following elements listed on the screen: setting, plot, conflict, or characterization. Next, the class has a whole group discussion about the difference between culture and ethnicity. Students discuss with a partner the cultural issues that have come up in the Book of Unknown Americans, as well as any issues related to ethnicity and how they are the same and different. To support students, definitely want to ensure that the classroom is an environment where students feel safe discussing this topic. The teacher might offer English learners the option to discuss the topic in their home language and report their discussion in English. And also, as a class, they might brainstorm different ethnicities and beliefs, traditions, and values from different countries. Moving on to activity 4, the class reviews the concept of theme, consulting the theme reference guide to establish a precise understanding of the term. As students move through the text, they should be encouraged to refine their initial understanding of emerging themes based on additional information. Next, students work with a partner to choose 2 characters from pages 67 to 91 of the novel to focus on. Each partner focuses on one of the selected characters. They independently complete the analyzing relationships tool for their chosen character using the question on the screen to guide their analysis. How does Enriquez use characterization to develop emerging themes in the novel? Finally, they share their character analysis with their partner and discuss the second set of questions. How are the emerging themes that each of you identified similar or related? How are they different? To support students as the lessons proceed, it may be helpful to discuss themes that are emerging in the literary elements and narrative techniques note taking tools, and to guide students to center their journal entries around how the literary elements shape the reader's understanding of those themes. Because themes are usually implied rather than explicitly stated, they can be difficult for students to discern. This unit has students continuously practicing identifying multiple thematic ideas and analyzing how they are developed into full themes and refining their understanding of the themes. This is the first time students use an analyzing relationships tool in this unit, so the teacher might want to explain its purpose or remind them of its purpose and organization and model how to use it using one of the characters from this section of the novel. If students are struggling with connecting character development to emerging themes, the teacher might focus their attention on a smaller chunk of text within this section. Finally, the teacher might have partner groups share their thematic ideas and emerging themes with the class and create an anchor chart that the class adds to and revises as they proceed throughout the unit. This lesson concludes with students reading and annotating pages 91 through 115 of the novel, adding 6 entries to their literary elements and narrative techniques note-taking tool, one for each literary element and narrative technique studied so far, which are listed here on the screen. They also write down newer interesting words in their vocabulary journal and stronger interesting sentences in their mentor sentence journal, and prepare to discuss a mentor sentence they identified in the next lesson. That brings us to our cub, which comes from activity 4. And I chose that because I chose the K because that's what the teacher is inputting in this activity. So students will know the difference, should say difference, not the difference between thematic ideas and theme. They'll understand how themes are developed through characterization and be able to analyze how characterization develops emerging themes in the Book of Unknown Americans using the analyzing relationships tool for a chosen character. So that is a wrap for this video. I welcome your feedback and look forward to hearing from you either on Twitter, via email, or in the comments. While you're here, don't forget to subscribe so you never have to worry about missing a video. Thanks for watching.